comfortable turning on your camera, we would love to see you. I see Maddie right here. See Miss Alevi's and Miss Delasanti's classrooms as well. Also, make sure you stay on mute. At the end, we will have a Q&A. And at the Q&A, we sent Sandra your questions already. Additionally, we sent Sandra your questions already. And additionally, we will also have time for a Q&A afterwards. So just make sure you stay on mute. And if we have time for your questions at the end, you will raise your hand right at the in that yellow hand icon, and we will let you in. Okay. We had a couple more people. So really quickly, I just want to introduce Sandra. She wrote the story "How Dare the Sunrise" that we've been reading for this unit, and we are super excited to have the opportunity to have her join us today. So Sandra, I would like to introduce Sandra and Princess to maybe turn their cameras on just to make sure that you guys are in. Let's see. Let me look for you. So is Sandra here? Let's find her. Let's see. All right, so hold tight. Let me just see where Sandra and Princess are at, and I will get right to you. Let me see. Whoops. Hold on for technical difficulties. Let's see. So, Amir Johnson, I see you are unmuted. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself, please. Let me just. So just give me 1 second.
Hey, Miss Moore.
What's up?
Miss Moore, if you want to make me an administrator on this or present, I can help with the meeting, people getting logged in.
Sure, sounds good.
Help.
Still just waiting for Sandra to come on. Let's see, manage permissions.
In the meeting participants, you can search users. So
Yeah.
you might be able to do that.
All right. Sandra. All right, let me let you in. So just hold tight, guys. I appreciate your patience. Let me see. Where are you, Lindsay? Miss Phillips, I'm not seeing you here as an option to be a person. Hold on.
I promise you I'm there somewhere.
Let's see. Well, first let's get Sandra in here because I'm not sure why.
That's all right, yeah.
Oh, you know what? Here, let me see. I think I might have forgotten to add her to the meeting, so hold on. Okay. Oh wait, no, I did. Give me 1 second, you guys. Calendar. Let's see. Edits. All right. All right. All right, just give me like 3 minutes and she'll get on here. I got her. All right.
How many classes is this? How long, I should say?
Probably like 2. Adam left his mic on.
All right, guys, what did I say about being muted? Please be muted or else I gotta kick you out, okay? Let's, we'll get started in just a second.
Sorry, I was just reminding him.
Thank you, Tommy. Send update. All right, she's coming. Da, 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 da. C, control C. All right, give me 2 seconds. And then 4. Nope. Remember, guys, this is I appreciate your patience. You guys are doing great. I just need to copy this. All right, hold on. And hold 30 seconds. Alrighty. All right, there we go. Hi, Sandra. Sorry we had that little mix up.
That's okay. That's all right. Good morning.
Good morning. If you wouldn't mind, is your camera working okay?
Yes, my camera is working fine. Hold on.
There we go. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for that mix up. We were just getting everyone situated, letting everyone in. But we actually, so I sent your sister the invite again, so hopefully Princess can join us in a second.
Yes, she'll be here soon.
All right, cool. So Sandra, thank you so much for taking your time to come and to speak with our classes. We're very excited to see you. So at any point you want to just get started, and we can.
Yeah. If you don't mind, Princess is about to show up. I don't want her to come in and interrupt, and so just give us like a minute or two.
No problem. So let's see. I'm just gonna lower your hand, Lexi. Okay. Oh, I have mine. Yeah, once everything's all situated, I'll go back over there. righty. Thanks, Miss Kula. I'll get the people in. All right. Hi, Princess.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sorry for that quick mix-up.
The video should be on, right?
Yes, we can
It is.
see.
It is? One second. There it is. Thank you. Yeah, I tried the other link and for my end it wasn't working, but I'm glad we're here now.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much again for your time and for coming in. We really appreciate it. We're super excited to have you here. And yeah, we're looking to hear a little bit more about your stories and your perspective on everything you guys went through. And we're just so thankful that you could have come through again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know that everyone has read the book, and I feel like you guys already know me so well. But Princess and I are here to kind of tell you a bit more about our stories and hopefully just have a conversation with you all and get to know each other a little better. And though you read my story in the book, I'm gonna let Princess start and start talking about where we grew up and how we grew up. And I'll talk to you guys later, but I'll let Princess start.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be with you this morning. It's hard to say that we are blessed to be here, but I want you to put that in that perspective. I am blessed to be here with you, regardless of the pandemic and everything that's going on. I'm hoping that after you hear all the stories and clear understanding of Sandra's story, which is my story, that you will realize how blessed we are to be here. And so I will just go, I won't take too long, but I'll give you just a background so that Sandra can dive in with the story of the Gatumba massacre and how we survived and, how we're here today. So as she's already shared, we both were born and raised in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's a country in Africa, in actually Central Africa, but we were raised in the Central East Africa. And it's one of the largest population in Sub-Saharan Africa. And Congo is very rich in natural resources. Like you're thinking diamonds, some mineral resources called coltan, casterite, tin, copper. Those are things, some of them are used in our cell phones, like the iPhones and all that. Congo is very rich in those things. It is one of the world's second largest forests, the rainforest actually. It's very fertile in the soil, like they grow a lot of, like it's very rich. Like farmers are very successful in Congo because of the rainforest and the climate and the soil, the mineral resources. It's really immeasurable, the things that Congo has. It's so rich that some people say it could feed like an entire country for years, even without working. But you will be surprised when I tell you that Congo is one of the poorest country. It ranks, because UN has measures they take and they rank each country how it's doing, feeding their population, education, infrastructure, and they will rank Congo being one of the last country on those measures, being the poorest. We were just laughing, me and Sandra, yesterday, how some research are showing that it's second to last, which means it has moved a little bit, an inch, to be better, if you will. So because the conflicts in Congo and disabilities, the economy is severely disrupted. And it's hard to even begin to say which one is worse than the other. Congo is very messed up with conflicts. And most of those are due to the mineral resources. People want to come and get gold, coltan, and mostly the rich. And so because of that, the normal people like us, we don't even know how rich Congo is because we've only known the poor side of it. But the elite, the rich, those in power, they have known all that and they use it to better themselves. Congo has known many wars. Like my mother would tell us that since she was born, she was told Congo has only been in war. Think about since, I don't know if you've read some history of Africa. Africa used to be just a one huge continent until the colonies came and they separated into countries. So our grandparents would tell us that since then, Congo really has not known peace. But for the sake of this conversation and even Sandra and I's age, we've known the biggest war that we've known in Congo. The first one was in 1996 through 1997. There was another one, a big one that made a huge difference in our lives in 1998 through 2003. And you will ask how we survive those type of war and what was it like? Really, I can't remember a time where I lived in Congo with just a whole year of peaceful moments. I mean, like going to school, come home, celebrate, and just be with the family. It was like every 3 months, there would be an eruption of war. Some militias would attack the town, the village, the city where we were in, and we would hide for maybe a week, maybe a month of no school, and there will be temporary peace, and then we will get back to some sort of normal. So those type of things in Congo were really a normal lifestyle. We knew that if we went 3 months up to 6 months of some relative peace, something's gonna happen, and kind of in our mind, oh, surprise if it didn't. So it was like that. Thankfully, we had neighboring countries when things went worse, like in 2003, 2004, we had to leave the country. There was no way around. People were displaced all over the place. It was the largest and the harshest we've experienced, at least for me and Sandra at that age. So we had to leave the country. Before I let Sandra go there, I'll tell you a little bit of, just so you understand. Some people will ask me questions like, so what do you think really? Why in Congo they fight a lot? Why are we here so many civil war? Like the war that I told you that we've known for Sandra and I in 2003, it was, if you've read also, there was a genocide that happened in Rwanda. Some people have watched Hotel Rwanda. It's a movie. If you haven't, that's okay. But if you heard about that, it's a genocide that took millions of people. Those people were called Tutsi, of ethnic Tutsi. And my people, the Banyamulenge, are also Tutsi. And so the genocide perpetrator, so people who killed in Rwanda, fled Rwanda and they went into Congo because it's a neighbor country. And so once in Congo, they started targeting people of Tutsi ethnicity, which were the Banyamulenge, my people. And so that's what increased the war in Congo in 1998 through 2003 to 2004, that we had to leave the country. It was immense discrimination, immense killing left to right. Anywhere they find a Munyamulenge, they would say that's a Tutsi and we should kill them. They don't deserve to live. And then they would instigate this idea of like, they are not Congolese, actually, they are Rwandan. And so even the other Congolese who tolerated us, they also increased their ways of discriminations and killing. So that's one thing that we've known that increased our issues in Congo in the war. So they started breaking into groups of killings. These war affected people very differently. For children, for women, it was worse because women were, and I don't know, forgive me if I have to say, they were raped, and you probably read those things. It's horrible to say, but women experienced it to the worst level. And they say in research, if you read, they will tell you that Congo is one of the worst places to be born a woman, and that's because of that. Some children were taken as soldiers because, you know, a young person, we probably haven't developed enough to think for ourselves as children. And so these militias will steal children and use them in military because they can do whatever they are told to. Unfortunately, that's what happens in Congo. UN has intervened. A lot of things were put in place to try to solve issues in Congo, but they were not reached because of the war and conflict and, yeah, as you may think. Just a little bit highlights of, you know, the civil war creates a circle of conflict, like I told you, war after war after war after war, and this causes poverty, and that means low income that contribute to tensions, low growth. It means high unemployment, you know, and you can imagine. So a lot of people get angry, and they want to fight. The landlocked in Congo, like it's a Central Africa, it's difficult to access anything. For example, country like Rwanda, which is neighboring Burundi, we are just locked in one place. There's no way to reach the outside world, to communicate with the outside world. And so that makes it even tough for the economy, for the well-being and welfare of people. There's bad infrastructure. And so in the neighbor countries, there was also conflicts going on. So everything makes it even harder. The natural resources that I mentioned, this causes tension because the elites are only the ones that are benefiting, those in power. Bad governance, if you're taking your note, bad governance is also one other issue, that people are there to benefit themselves. And I want to conclude by telling you that, you know, when a country is already disrupted, such as Congo, it's hard. There's no quick fix. You may ask, like, what can we do to solve those issues? It's not easy. It requires a lot of people to come together. The government has to do their job. The people on local level have to do their jobs. It's not a quick fix. It requires all of us to work together and start untangling a lot of issues that have come to be normalized in Congo. I'm gonna let Sandra take on, because after all this happened and we fled the country, we were put to stay in the refugee camp, Gatumba Refugee, which you probably already read in Sandra's book. Thank you, and I'm still here with you.
Wait, Sandra, let me unmute you really quick. Let's see.
You're muted.
My bad. I'm back. Okay. I want to thank everyone, and I thank you, Princess, for setting that background. I just wanted to let everyone know that I was so excited to be here, and I would love to see some of your faces. I feel like we're sharing such personal parts of our lives, and it would be great to see some of your faces, so I don't feel like I'm talking to a screen. So thank you guys for turning on your cameras. My name is Sandra. I'm the author of How Dare the Sunrise, which you guys have been reading. And where Princess just left off is probably where my life started to go, not in a way that I would ever have dreamed. Even though we grew up in what most people consider the poorest places, the poorest place in the world, we were very rich, and we were rich in experiences, rich in love, the love of our parents, of our friends and siblings. I really never felt like I was a poor kid, because I was never made to feel like that. My parents always made sure I was taken care of. I went to the best school. I knew that if I was lacking something, it was because they didn't have it. And it's not poverty if you have people that are willing to do whatever it takes to provide for you and to make sure that you're taken care of. So when we left and found ourselves in a refugee camp, it was really destabilizing. Imagine being lost somewhere, because you're not really integrated with the public. The public usually lives like 30 minutes to an hour away from you. So you never see anybody except the people that are in that refugee camp with you. And you have no school. There are no resources at all. There's no medical care. There's nothing to entertain yourself with. You left all your things in your country. And basically you're at the mercy of the UN. It really felt very hopeless. I had never felt that hopeless in my entire life. And at that time, my friends back home were taking their Regents exams in 6th grade. And that was very necessary in order to be able to get into high school. So I was so worried. I worried about how I'll be able to continue my schooling if I stay in this refugee camp. And every day it was like, when are we going to leave? And there's nothing sadder than looking at your parents for answers and they have none, because they also have no idea when things are going to end and when you're going to be able to have your life back. And so it forces children to grow up very quickly and to understand a lot of hardships that no child should have to understand. And this is especially hard for young women, young girls, and women in general. When you're in an unsafe environment, the victims tend to be those who can't defend themselves, and those are children and women. And so they tend to be the victims of a lot of crimes, a lot of abuse. And of course, who are you going to report it to? You're in a refugee camp. And so you feel even more unsafe, even more exposed. And you slept in tents that had no privacy. You lived with multiple families. It's nothing I would ever wish on any of you guys, to live like that. We had to get our water from this plastic tank that was left outside day in and day out. It was the first time I truly felt like we were poor. I was that kid that I heard about from Africa that doesn't have anything, because I felt like everything I had been taken away from me. My schooling had been taken away from me. My home had been taken away from me. And I was helpless. There's nothing I could do about it. There's nothing my parents could do about it. But, I still felt lucky because I had my family with me. I had both my parents. I had my sisters. Even though some of my siblings had to flee separately. That's another thing. Like, when war happens, people think you have time to prepare, but you don't. You basically have to pick up exactly where you are and just go as you are. And for that reason, we had to leave 2 of my siblings behind. And you would think, what kind of parents would leave their children behind? But it was safer for them to take a different route than to come with us. And that's a reality that hundreds of thousands of people learn every day around the globe by being displaced in their homes due to conflict, due to seeking a better life, due to different kinds of abuse and violence. We stayed in the Gatumba refugee camp for about 2 months. We had no idea when things would settle down back home, and that we would get to go back home. So that day when the massacre happened, it felt like any other day. You know, we spent the day playing outside. Deborah and I did our chores. We played with our friends. We rode bikes in the street with some of the kids that lived nearby. It felt like any other day, and we had started really kind of adjusting, because at some point you just have no choice but to adjust. Princess that day had gone to the city in Bujumbura, and she was not in the camp that night. You know, you often think why something happened, but you know, who knows what would have happened if she had been in the camp that night. And my cousin, who was supposed to be with her, was, you know, decided not to go last minute, and she ended up staying in the camp. And as you guys have read, she did not make it. It was it was the worst day of our lives. Our family was turned upside down. Our whole lives were destroyed. It felt like just the worst kind of despair. I truly have no words to describe it till this day. It's still hard to put into words what something like that would do to you, especially as a child, not understanding why it's happening to you, not understanding why all this violence is being brought upon you. You think, what did we do? Like, what crime have we committed to be treated like this? Because you think that when you're in a refugee camp and in the care of the United Nations that you are safe, and that's not the case at all. I think we were the first camp to be attacked in that manner under the care of the international community. It was a brutal attack on my people, simply because we look the way we do and speak the dialect that we do, which is ridiculous because, as you know from the book, Congo has over 200 dialects. Everyone in Congo, every tribe has their own language. And we were targeted simply because we look Rwandan, and Rwanda has had conflicts with Congo for a very, very long time. We became the victims of a war we did not create. And for that, I lost my little sister, I lost my cousins, I lost many childhood friends. But above all, not above all, but also I lost my peace. I felt like my life hasn't been the same since that happened. It constantly feels like, you know, you're struggling to keep people's memories alive because you understand that they were lost in such an unjust way. And you fear that you will forget them because you weren't ready to lose them in the first place. It was such, it really just destroyed my family in a way that I cannot begin to explain to you guys without breaking down. But my mom was the last person to be with Deborah as she was being killed. And I saw a lot of gruesome things that night that no child should have to see ever. No one should have to see, but especially children. Seeing people speaking your language and praising God for having the ability to kill you at a young age begins to create things in your mind where you're constantly wondering why, and you become angry. I was angry for a very long time. I didn't think I would ever be able to forgive anyone, any of those people. And I thought that, you know, I should hate all of these people. And the more I hated, the more angry I became. It was only a burden on me because they didn't know. And even if they did, they didn't care. So I think that's where the birth of activism came from, is realizing that just being angry and being silent and hating is not going to bring them back, and it's not going to solve anything. And not to say that I'm not angry about it, still I am, but I choose to use that anger in a way that I help educate people and help raise awareness so things like this never happen anywhere in the world, and no one ever has to go through this. After that, we became, again, refugees in Rwanda, this country that we had heard was supposed to be our home, that we had never stepped foot in. And it was, nothing, it didn't feel like home. Yes, we spoke the language. Yes, we looked like the natives, but it was not home. It was not Congo. In fact, I felt the loneliest I've ever felt living in Rwanda, and the most like an outcast while living in Rwanda. And my family was so poor back then. It was just the worst time. And again, I was taken out of another environment and put into a new one. And I had to adapt to that one. I had to figure out how to go to school, which all happened, as you guys know from the book. I ended up going to school. And then before I knew it again, we're doing interviews to come to the US. And Princesse, if you would like, you can speak a little more about that process of coming, of going back and forth to Burundi and Rwanda, and going through all the things we have to go through in order to get to America, because people think it's so easy. People think, you're a refugee, you report to the UN, and they say, get on the plane, we'll take you. But it's nothing like that at all. Princesse, you muted.
I was saying that these past few years is where we've seen a lot of questions about refugees and immigrants, because as you know, America welcomes thousands of people. So as a refugee, as a former refugee, I'm thankful for what America does for immigrants and refugees. But unfortunately, these past few years, those numbers decreased they decreased. So it was a limited number. So we have a lot of people actually struggling to get in and finding refuge place for safety. But if you ask any refugees, they will tell you it's a struggle. Like after we survived the massacre, we went from Burundi to Rwanda in search for safety. We stayed in Rwanda with nothing, like Sandra has stated. I want to tell you that we are actually Christians, so our faith is a big deal in all this process. We were praying, we would pray for food, and strangers would literally come to say hi and bring a few thousand Rwandan money to help us buy food. And we survived that way. We did experience God's faithfulness through that. And so our faith played a big part. And then we would ask for transportation. Even though when you went to the interviews from Rwanda to Burundi, the UN did not provide transportation or meals or anything of that support. You just had to find a ways to get yourself from one place to the other. And the interviews were cruel because they ask you about the massacre. They ask you questions if you were there, if you lost someone, and all these not tough questions, but questions that were traumatic, like send you back to the place, but they were not providing therapy. If you're familiar with just like a interrogation to make sure you were part of that camp, you did indeed survive the massacre. And so most refugees actually don't want to do that because it just feels like you are really saying you don't believe me, or you are questioning how I lost my entire family. Can you imagine And so those type of things, no one wanted to sit through. I remember my mother dropping and saying, we're not going back, because every time we came back, it was trauma after trauma. And so, yeah, it's not an easy process. It took years. They were dropping out of school. Even when we had a little help, we, would be from one place to the other. There was no adjusting. And yeah, pretty much all I can say about the interview process is the re-traumatizing part of that process.
Yeah, and after that, it took from 2005. The end of 2005 is when we heard about these interviews taking place, and my family was not resettled until 2007. So, and we were one of the first families to actually be resettled in this program, which is crazy. We had people still being resettled up until 2015, exactly from the same massacre we survived. So next time you hear people talk about how, refugees are just coming in, and it's not like that at all. It takes years and years of being vetted and finding a county that will take them. Actually, they don't just bring refugees to your community. They have to vote on it. Like, your leaderships have to vote and agree that they will take refugees, and then they'll bring refugees to your community. And that's something that, as Rochesterians, we should be really proud about, because Rochester has a large refugee community that has added so much to our community, certainly to my life. I remember when I first arrived, it wasn't as big, and I was very lonely. And I know my parents were really lonely because we didn't speak English, and it was hard for us to interact with Americans because of the language barriers and cultural barriers. So, it's definitely good to see Rochester become such a diverse place, filled with so many people from all over the place. And I think that's something we should all be very proud about. But speaking of Rochester, when we arrived, it was nothing like I thought America would be. My only knowledge of America was like in music videos, in films. So I thought that, everyone in America was really rich, and that I was going to get out and kind of like get a car and a lot of money and I'll be set for life. But of course, you guys know that that's not a reality. I was really shocked to see that there were homeless people in America and that there were hungry people, because being an African, you constantly see foreigners coming into your country and telling you just, like, we're poor, we're underdeveloped, we don't have rights, and all of these things. So you think, well, you must have all of those things back home for everybody. And so it was a huge culture shock to find that America had a lot of problems also. Like, they were not this perfect nation that, provided for everyone. People went hungry in America. There were people that were treated unjustly in America. And, it was kind of like, so life is the same kind everywhere. No matter where you are, you experience these hardships, and at the end of the day, we all just want a place to belong. But those first few years, I have to say, I did not feel like I belonged at all. It was very lonely going to school and spending 8 hours in a classroom and no one talks to you because they don't know how to interact with you because they don't speak your language. And I don't speak their language, so I don't know how to interact with them. It made for a very lonely 6th grade and 7th grade and even 8th grade. I kind of became this introvert then, because before then I was very outgoing. Like, I was, the loudest one in the room. I spoke often and openly. But, when I got here and realized that I couldn't communicate, I kind of became shy. I would go home and watch cartoons and learn English because I really wanted to fit in so badly. I would spend hours trying to figure out how to be more American, and I would go to school and I wouldn't even practice because I was shy. I was scared that I would mess up English and be laughed at. And kids will make fun of everything, and I think that's global. It's not new for like American kids or anything. Like, seventh graders are the same everywhere. They'll joke and make fun of you, and that's just how it is. It's hard being in middle school anywhere. I promise you that. But quick, slowly.
Tail lights. Hey, but I got guy coming to the grill today.
Okay, somebody's mic is on, and I heard them. I don't know what they're talking about. So
I muted them. They're good. Oh, Sandra, we can't hear
You're
you.
muted.
We lost you a little bit.
just muting other people. All right, sorry. So, like I said, I was watching a lot of cartoons to learn English. So after a few months, I would say that I was pretty conversational. I could start saying hello to people, and I would go more than like hello, because that's all I knew when I got here. So I could make small talk and kind of go to the grocery store and translate to my mom. And that was another responsibility that we all had to take on as children. We had to live our own lives and fit in and pursue schooling, but also come home and help our parents live their lives because they didn't have the opportunity to go to school and to learn English. Because when you get here, people think, oh, the government is just taking care of you. That's not true. The organization that receives you, which is usually a nonprofit organization that gets donations from everyday people and grants, they receive you and care for you for about 6 months. They help you pay your rent. They find you a job. They help you get around. But after 6 months, generally they leave, and then you're on your own. And and it's really it's lonely because no one is after that. You're kind of left to figure out all these things. Like I didn't even understand like how am I gonna go to college? Who's gonna explain to me how to go to college? What how do I get government assistance? All these things that you don't often think about because maybe you have a parent that will explain that to you. My parents didn't go to college. They didn't go to school in America. They don't even speak English. And so as kids, we were left to figure out a lot of things for ourselves, which is why I'm so thankful for the people that were in my life back then, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to navigate the American systems. I had, teachers who helped me go to a better school. They literally like drove me to like after school and these entrance exams, and they even like helped me fill out applications so that I could get into the school I ended up going to, which was Mercy High School. Without her, I would never have known about Mercy High School. And then I also had friends who just hung out with me and made me feel like a normal kid, which is all I wanted to feel like. I just wanted to fit in at that time. And I know for Princess as well, she had people in her life that were helping her at the time. We all were blessed with such great friends and such great people in Rochester. And that's probably why we're still there, even though it's so cold, because we like the people. But adjusting to America was not easy. It's definitely the hardest part about being a refugee, because you're always expected to be the one learning the culture, the one learning the language. No one really makes the effort back to learn who you are and to learn about your culture. And that kind of made me really angry as a teen. So I wanted to do something about it. And that's when we started. We were already doing activism because we were raising money to help some of the orphans that were left back in Rwanda. But I also wanted to educate the people in Rochester about who I was. I didn't want them to think of me as just this refugee, as if I didn't have, a meaningful life before I arrived in America, because that's not true. I wanted them to know that I come from one of the most beautiful places in the world, that I come from one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. I wanted them to know that, yes, you hear all these terrible things about Africa, but there's also all this beauty and all this culture and all these amazing people with so much talent and dreams and ambition. I wanted them to know that part of us as well. And I wanted them to know the great parts of my culture and traditions and games. So we would teach some of our friends like Swahili. We would teach them some of the games we used to play. And that kind of made me feel better. And I have people that always ask me, like, what are some of the ways that I can help someone like you at that time feel more included? And it's just as simple as making yourself available to be their friend. You don't need any special skill to make someone feel welcomed and make someone feel like they belong. And I think we are all capable of that. That does not require you to work for any nonprofit. And in such a small way, you can make such a big difference in somebody's life. And I would like to encourage all of you guys to look around you and in your community and see what way you can be a better neighbor and a better friend to people that need that. I know these days, we're all on our phones. We're all friends on social media, but there are people that can't even interact like that on social media because they're having trouble making friends because of the language barrier. And you don't need to know people's languages in order to be their friend. I had people who just sat next to me during lunch and we didn't say anything at all. And I'm still really good friends with some of those girls. Because they just took that time to be there for me. And I really think that without all of those people, I wouldn't have been able to find my voice as an activist and to know that people cared. So I started using my voice, and Princess was a huge part of that, of kind of helping me find my voice, because she was always an activist. She was always doing something. And it was actually her that inspired me to stand up and speak in front of an audience for the first time ever. She, I think she pretended she was sick, and she made me get up in front of this audience and tell her story. I was so nervous because, as I said, like, I had become this introvert that didn't like to speak in front of people because I was scared that I would mess up. And I remember after I finished speaking, I couldn't even remember what I spoke about, but the people in the audience seemed so moved, and it really resonated because I was just sharing what was on my heart. And after that, I really decided to continue using my voice and continue speaking on the things that I care about, because I realized that it's not that people don't care. It's that a lot of us just don't know. We don't have access to the information we need in order to act. And I encourage you all to look out for that information. Go to your libraries, go to these nonprofits in your communities that can give you information about how to get involved. And I did that too as well at your age. and it took me all over the world. And I found myself in front of world leaders at the age of 17, telling my story. And it's not because I'm special. There are hundreds of thousands of people with stories similar to mine. But it's about standing up. It's not that I think that I'm special. It's that I think that this story needs to be told. And don't think that somebody else is going to do something that's on your heart. You're the person that's supposed to do it because it's on your heart. And for a long time, you know, even some people questioned why me, why I thought I could do this, why I thought I could speak for Congolese people. I didn't try to speak for Congolese people. I was trying to speak for myself. And once you find something that's on your heart, whether it's a cause that you really believe in and that you really want to fight for, don't think that somebody else is going to do it. Somebody else is going to take care of it. There is somebody more qualified, smarter than me that's going to stand up and do it. You know, I can give you examples, and I think you all know these young people, young women, young men that have stood up at such a young age for things they believe in, like Malala Yousafzai, like Greta Thunberg. You know, there are many who are just at your age and who started at your age, and I started at your age. You're never too young to fight for the things that you believe in. And that's really the only thing that I hope you get from my presentation, if you don't get anything else, is that we are all capable, even at our young age. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small because of your age. There's a lot of power in your youth and your ability to see things from a different perspective. So don't be afraid to speak up just because you are young. I think that being young is actually such a powerful tool that we all need to start using, and never let that fire die out. You have exactly what you need to make a difference in your communities. So that's where I would like to leave you on my presentation. But I want Princess to speak about what she has been doing since we arrived in America, because as I said, she was my inspiration for really like starting my journey as an activist and my journey of finding my voice. So I'd love for you guys to hear from her.
So since we came to Rochester, some of the things she's already shared. While we were in Rwanda, the way we adjusted was to begin some sort of nonprofit, but that wasn't very formal. So we began a foundation, a ministry we called Foundation of Hope. We would sing. Don't ask me to sing, but we sang then. We used to sing and we would raise money for orphans. So when we came back, when we were sent to live here in Rochester, we did the same thing. We sang, we went to churches, to places, to school, and we would raise money for the same orphans. That ministry grew, but it transitioned to incorporated after Sandra's book came out and went into the Jimbere Fund. But that's not what I'm going to tell you about. My personal life, I really spend most of my time working with refugees. I worked with them here in Rochester for years. I worked with them in North Carolina. And right now there's a slight pause because, like I said, the numbers decreased. So there's not many refugees coming in, but we're doing applications for like citizenship, green cards, filing for petitions to get family members reunited. And that's something that we're doing through the church I attend called New Hope Church. And we're always looking for volunteers, actually, people who can complete form, who can get people in. Temporarily, because of COVID, we're not doing that in person, but that's something we continuously do. I am a big advocate, and a lot of refugees, especially those that we speak same language, and I'm talking about French, Kiswahili, Kirundi, about 5 languages, will call us because we were one of the first families here in Rochester. So we kind of have a slightly wider experience with the immigration, and so we we will be helping anytime there's a new refugees. Catholic families will call us and tell us, hey, there's this family coming, would you care to adapt? And I put that in quotation because it's more like, show them around, show them where to shop, where to find the food that they are used to, things of that nature. So it's more advocacy, more guidance, more, showing around and advising and finding primary doctors and applying for benefit, things like that. And there's never a moment where if you needed to help, there's a lot of those things because the benefits, they're always expiring and people need someone to help read the letter and complete the forms with them. And like Sandra said, it doesn't have to be that you speak the language, because most of the stuff are actually in your language and the other person's the one struggling and you can help. Yeah, so a lot of that is what we're doing, the advocacy, the applying for unemployment now. With COVID, a lot of families lost their jobs and they were left with no food. You go back to applying for benefits. Actually, in my church, we began a ministry also called Crisis Response Team, and now I'm part of that team as well. And mainly with the pandemic and helping people, stay safe and have what they need to just sustain themselves throughout now. And so that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome, Princess. So we have a lot of questions that you guys submitted to your teachers, and we are gonna start answering some of them, but I know some of you wanted to ask them yourself. So don't worry about that. We'll leave some time for you to ask the questions, but we'll go ahead and start answering some of the ones that were sent in that we picked up. Princess, I'll start by asking you a question. Your first question is, what was your perspective of Sandra when she was a kid?
My perspective of Sandra. I really wish we were in person, guys, because people who know me, it's hard for me to stay away from things that can be funny, And so when Sandra is asking my perspective of her when we were kids, is, I was a princess and she was the baby sister of a princess. And so sometimes she would steal my crown and I was okay. Is that funny, guys?
No.
Yeah,
Guys.
she was a baby, and that tells, because even after we came here, it's true that I will put her on the spot because she was a little bit shy, maybe not just a little bit, and so I did a lot of bringing her out, and I loved who she was. She was very smart. She's actually a kid after my own heart because she's the one that completes my sentences, literally. There are ways I speak, and before I get my thoughts out, Sandra knows, and that's how deep we know each other.
Yeah, we were very close even when I was younger. And Princess was, she's my oldest sister, and I always looked up to her. But she's very, very funny as a person, very corny. It's not funny, but I let her think she is. But she's great. She's definitely like a really great big sister to have, even with her terrible jokes.
I'm glad.
Do you want to ask me a question? Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the questions here. Because some of them you were able to answer them throughout your conversation and discussion. But my question to you is, yeah, and I hope I say this name right, but Ariana Douglas, if you could go back in time, what could you say to your younger self? Because I would want to hear that.
Oh gosh, I would say like buckle up. It's about to get bumpy. which was I would tell her to hang on and be brave because a lot was about to be thrown in her way. I would tell her that she'll make it through them, and that you know, in the end, she will be okay. Even after all the hurt, that she will be okay.
Let me see if there's another question for you. Well, somebody asked about the American dream and asking Sandra if you have experienced that yet.
The American dream. Okay, I guess it depends on how you define the American dream. If you define American dream by wealth and I don't even know, wealth, I guess, is that the American dream? I'm not. But if you define it as feeling a sense of belonging, finally, that I can say that I do feel. Because I talk about it in my book. This was the first citizenship that I ever actually had. Some of the first IDs that I ever had, besides like a school ID. So in many ways, this is my home. And if that's the way you describe the American dream, then I say I've experienced it. But in all the other materialistic ways that I thought, you know, were the American dream, and I thought that I would achieve, I've yet to achieve it, guys. So, you know, look out, maybe. Maybe I'll become a super rich mogul, but that's not really my goal. But yeah, I haven't really experienced that American dream. But I found a home, and that I think in itself is a gift.
So while writing your book, Sandra, did you experience writer's block? If so, how did you motivate yourself to start writing again? If not, what did you do to prevent writer's block?
Yeah, so of course, like when you're working on a book, because of just the length of it, you're bound to be tired or to have writer's block. For me, it was different because I'm telling my story, and obviously I know my story. I knew what I wanted to say, but I definitely had moments where I felt nervous to write exactly what I wanted to say, because I was scared about how it would make me look to the public. Mm-hmm. And that was the main challenge I experienced. And after a lot of thinking, I came to the decision that if I was going to tell my story, I was going to have to tell it in a way that's true and authentic to me. And there's no use in telling my story if I'm going to leave out the things I really, really want to say, because I'm scared of how it's going to make me look. And I'm really glad that I wasn't scared away, and that I said all the things that I wanted to say, even the things that were very hard for me. What to do to prevent writer's block? I would say just continue exercising, continue journaling, even like things, mundane things that aren't really like that serious. But just talking about your day and you know, maybe like picking up a different kind of art, or like singing or drawing, but keeping your creative side kind of exercise, I would say that helped. And also just walking away from it for a little bit and doing something completely different will sometimes like give you other ideas of what you want to talk about. But it's hard, but it's nothing that can't be done, given that I did it. And, you know, I think that you guys are all probably just as smart, if not smarter than me.
Questions in the chat, and I also see people who raise their hands. So I think, Hannah, do you want to manage that?
Yeah, we can do that. If you have a question for Sandra, if you could please click on that little hand sign, and then I can, or write your name in the chat or say I have a question, then I will call on you, and you can ask your question to Sandra and Princess. So if you have a question, if you could take a moment to either write a comment or raise your hand, please do so.
There's one already in the chat. I see Helen said, every time you share your story, you're having to reconnect with all the horror of your past. How do you keep from being depressed? Well, surprise, surprise, I am. No, I've dealt with depression, and it's not something any one of us should be ashamed to talk about. And I know I just joked about it. It's a very serious thing, but that's the reality. Like, you go through things that are traumatic. Some of us are bound to be depressed or experience depression, and that doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me any less strong. But it's something, it's a struggle that I have to deal with and have to find care for, like I would if I had a broken arm or a broken leg. I wouldn't just sit there and say, well, it will heal, I guess, I hope. You seek care, and there's nothing to be ashamed in that. It's completely healthy and okay to seek help when you don't feel well. Like, wounds of the heart and of the mind are just as lethal as one physical one. And all of you guys, like, seek care, ask for help if you need help, because I do. Many of us do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh. All right, let's hear from Faiza. Faiza Said. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I hope I am.
I have a question. My name is Faiza Said. I'm sorry. Did you have a problem like pronouncing stuff due to your accent, which is very pretty, by the way?
So are you asking Princess or myself?
I'm asking both of you guys.
I still have trouble pronouncing some things. Like, some words I'll have to slow down a lot in order to pronounce it, because like my tongue just doesn't move that way, and you guys have trouble pronouncing my name, and that's just how languages work. So I still find myself in, like, reading something out loud, and I'll come across a word that I know what it means, I know what it is, but I try to say it and it just does not come out the way that I know it's supposed to be pronounced. Princess?
English is the weirdest language I've learned, because you people have something like enough, and I look for F, I can't find it. And so I am struggling. I can't say a lot of many other words that are similar, or they're maybe come out, you probably think this is funny too, because there are bad words and there are good words. Like, I don't even want to give an example because I can't say those two. Like a paper, how do you call a paper? And the covering of your bed. And yeah, because I don't want to, I can't. The bed, amashuka. See?
Oh, like sheets?
Yeah.
Like bed sheets?
And the
so
word
you
Excel.
have trouble, yeah. Also, you have trouble with the word sheets and like the bad word.
Yeah.
Okay.
The like Excel paper, the spread Excel. So my accent doesn't distinguish, and Sandra knows me. I'm very sensitive with bad words, and so my accent does not make a difference. So I stay away from using those words. So English we're still learning. Now,
so what do you call sheets if you have to say sheets? What do you say?
Like for bed?
Yeah.
my beds are covering. You know, I don't use it. Thankfully, I only use it on my household, so I use other languages, so I don't use English. Yeah, forms. Yeah,
That's funny.
but anyway, that somebody asked how I raise my family. You know, you'll be surprised how my son, who's 6 years old, he just turned 6. He now knows my accent, and he would say, "Okay, so you're saying this in the African way," and then he would correct me. So anytime he corrects me, I would switch and say in the other language and say, "So now you don't know, huh? You don't know." So we go back and forth, but it's sweet to have that too. So he's started to learn Kinyarwanda, and he knows he understands my accent. He tried to correct me a little bit, but he's now known that mommy's way. Because Sandra, you know, Benito has an accent now. He has an
Oh
accent.
yeah, he does. I have no idea where he picks it up. I think it's from you. He mimics her accent, and it's the weirdest thing because this kid was born here, goes to American schools, and he sounds just like Princess.
Yeah, he pronounced the T's. He said those, I don't know. He tried to correct me, it didn't work, and then he catch on.
Okay, so I see there is more questions in the chat. Nina said, Princess, what was it like to help raise your family? And Sandra, what was it like to have to teach your parents?
How did you teach your parents?
Well, like we would help them translate like bills or any important letters they got from the government, and that of course is weird, having to help your parents do like things that parents usually do and you don't know about. So I would know things like my parents' financials, like things that they don't usually disclose to children. I would know like all the bills they had due. I would know a lot of their medical stuff because I had to explain to translate to them sometimes.
Do you still want to be the president of Congo, Sandra? This is from Nkodia Ndongala.
I mean, yeah, I do, but you know, I'm also I will settle for just, you know, being a part of the change that brings about good leadership to the country. But it's definitely one of those dreams that still feels like I want it to become a reality. Maybe not for me, but for someone like me, for someone that loves Congo as much as me, for someone that cares about Congolese people as much as me. And I believe that will happen, hopefully in my lifetime. But, you know, who knows?
Yeah. Faiza, I do agree with you. Accents are beautiful things. For a time, as a young person, you would think, oh, I'm different and it's not a good thing because I stand out when I speak, and you try to shy away. But please don't, because actually I love it when people can tell, oh, you're from Africa, or you're from this part of the world. I love it because sometimes it just starts a conversation and they're usually good ones, and I get to meet and know people that way. So I agree with you. There are other questions that I wanted to answer that came through the email. Sandra, they were asking about my memory with my baby sister, Deborah, whose life was taken also in the Gatumba massacre. My last memory, actually, when I left that Thursday evening, because the massacre happened on Friday, she was the one that carried my suitcase, which was kind of a little bit heavy. It was a small one, but a bit heavy for her age. And usually when we hung out, she would want a candy and ask for things. But this particular day, I'm telling you, she asked for nothing. She carried my suitcase and she walked, and we walked as they were accompanying me to catch the bus. And they left, and I was surprised. I remember asking my mother, this is so strange. Deborah didn't ask me for a candy after doing all this, after walking with me. And I said, I gave my mom like a dollar I had, not a dollar, a money, Burundian money I had, and I said, please buy her a candy. That's the last time I seen her, and I always think back of that moment, and that's really what breaks my heart. It's even hard to talk about it. But when I remember that, I wish I could have even hugged more and just stay there, you know?
Oh no, it's I wish there's a little icon for it.
Yeah.
In
Go
front
ahead
of
and
you.
ask your question. Go ahead.
But go ahead and ask. How do I feel when I had to find? Can you please repeat the question? I'm sorry. Oh, the next morning? Well, we were like looking for her body because my mom was there with her and she knew she was the last to hold her. She knew Deborah had been killed. She actually died in her arms, which is very heartbreaking. And so the next morning, we knew she was killed, and we were just trying to find her body, which had been burned um, with the tent, and we could only see like her bones, like skull where she was laying. Um, but those again are images that I don't think will ever leave our minds, and that haunt us every day, and I'm sure haunt my mom even more. Um, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to answer some of the questions that are in chat because I think they're interesting. I think I spoke on the depression, and my advice to you is just seek help. Find someone you trust, talk to them, and know that you're not alone, and know that it's completely fine. It's Don't be ashamed for how you feel and what you're going through because it's something that so many people go through, and you're still a strong person. You're still amazing, and you can get through it. Has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself? I don't think that it's changed the way I see myself. I think it changes the way the world sees me. I have always been this person. I've always had this much to say. I've always, cared deeply about these issues. But I think just because of the way the world is, now that I'm a published author, I'm able to have more doors open for me that perhaps I wouldn't have as just a regular person who didn't write a book. I don't know, there's just this weight that comes with, oh, you're a published author. But to me, it just feels like a journal, like I went down and wrote down everything I was thinking. And so it doesn't really make me feel like I'm any different because I'm not. I'm still that same person. But I do think that the world sees me a bit different, which is kind of messed up because